log in, you will see if you have any lab reservations right up front. Now it does say that there's a new lab reservation button. Depending upon the course you take and the instructor, it's likely that this will not be available to you, that your instructor will be setting up your labs. I would want to confirm the lab that I'm entering. You can see here it says Lab 1. That's the one to be expected. It also does give me the name of the pod. If I have a problem with any of this, I can usually find the name of the pod right here. We'll also see it when we enter. The reason why I say that is we might want to communicate this with our instructor if we have any problems. It also tells me how much time I have left on my lab. I've only got 36 minutes and it's going to close at 3:30 p.m. so I better get a wiggle on here. So I'll hit my Enter Lab button. And now this is called a pod. Now a pod is composed of multiple virtual machines that are connected together to provide your lab environment. If we take a look in this pod, we can see for this particular course, this pod includes 5 virtual machines, and you can see them across here. That's what each of these are. Now, across the top here, you can see that we are currently in the topology. This shows us the virtual machines within the pod and how they're connected together by the networks. Each one shows the name of the virtual machine, as well as its IP address on the network that it's connected on. We can also see over the side here how much time we have remaining. And that's an important one to keep an eye on. You will be warned when you get close to the time that your lab time will expire that you're getting close. And if your instructor has configured it, you'll be able to extend that time 1 or more times. You'll be able to add an additional 10 minutes. However, once it elapses, this lab will close and it will reset the whole pod, meaning all the virtual machines, and it will no longer hold the settings that you configured. So it's important to try to complete the lab within the time allotted. Let's go across the top here. We can also click on, besides topology, we can go to content, and this is where I'll find my lab. And you can see this one has been set up for Lab 1. You'll also notice with this particular browser it has the download link. Oftentimes it's really handy to download the document, and then you can go ahead and take a look at it later on. If I don't download it, it will no longer be available. You can also just hit this button if you want to print directly out of your browser. We can expand or reduce the size. Some of these settings are specific to the browser. The browser I'm currently using is Chrome. If you're using Firefox, Safari, or Edge, you'll get a different set of settings here. Moving across the top here, here's status. Now status is useful because it's going to let me know if all my devices are currently powered on, which they should be. Those are powered on automatically when the pod is launched. But I also have some actions. So if there were a problem with the virtual machine, I could actually click on this arrow here and tell it to power off, and then I can power back on. I can also change the scale, and I can even send it a Control-Alt-Delete. We'll see that we can do this elsewhere. Let me go ahead and click on each of these. Now, each of these buttons here relates to an individual virtual machine within my pod. So when I click on this button here, you can see that I'm looking at the SA student. When I click on this button here, I'm looking at the SA VCSA. Relating back to the topology, here's the SA student. So again, when I click on this button, I see the SA student. However, in the topology, you can also click on these. And I click on that icon, and it shows me the SA student interface. Each of these is an interface for the virtual machine. In this particular lab, for this particular course, your primary access point for your labs will be through SA student. So once you log into the pod, you'll use the SA student to interact with the rest of the components, including your E6i server and your vCenter server. Again, here's our SA VCSA, and what you can see here is the main screen or the main display, which would allow you to get a little bit of information off of that VCSA, but we're not going to be using it for the most part to access the VCSA. We'll be using this. Here's the E6i1, here's the E6i2, and if you click on this one, you can see that this is actually an Ubuntu virtual machine running 6.04.6 LTS, and this has been configured to provide multiple services. One of those services is storage. If I take a look at my topology, that's SAAIO. All right, let's drop back into the topology. Okay, thanks for watching this video on how to navigate a Netlab pod interface. See you next time.